information in the logs, torture and other observations, we have nothing to say at this point.
Christian?
No? Okay. Next question. Right here. Right here.
I'll direct this question at Phil. On the importance of the government granting a full judicial investigation, if that doesn't happen, will they take each case on an individual basis and string this out for a decade and more, therefore lessening the impact of it? So the government coming round and granting that judicial review is crucial to your process, isn't it?
It is. The government's position is that it can deal with one case at a time, and each case will take a year. We have 142 outstanding cases, so that will take 142 years. The alternative is for the administrative court here in London to put teams of judges into courtrooms to deal with these cases within a proper timescale. Both of those, we say, are absurd, and that the only rational solution to all of these cases is to get it over with and hold a proper inquiry along the lines of the Baha Musa inquiry, which has just concluded. And the MOD really need to stop covering up, which they do with greater and greater desperation, slurring everyone that they possibly can. We all know that many things went badly wrong in Iraq. We know from the Baha Musa inquiry, for instance, that we should have had a detailed interrogation directive in force in Iraq. That directive would have told interrogators what they could, and more importantly, what they could not do. The MOD in the Baha Musa inquiry say, we're very sorry we didn't have one. And we're very sorry also that that meant that the interrogators fell back on training techniques from chick stands. And we're also very sorry to admit that the training was completely unlawful. It involved forced nudity, keeping people naked if they wouldn't cooperate, harshing, invasion of intimate space, the use of threats. One man said to the Baha Musa inquiry, the only limits on coercion were the limits of one's imagination. And I'm not going to try and explain the horrendous things that people did to my clients when they let their imagination run wild. A lot of it involves paedophilic images, hardcore pornography, sexual intercourse and sexual acts in front of my clients, etc., etc., etc. You simply cannot say that this is all down to a few bad apples, a few rogue soldiers, a few isolated incidents. It's horrendous, it's been covered up, and you, the press, are often the people who allow it to be covered up because you simply don't run the stories. You're obsessed, some of you, with what we might have done in Pakistan or what we might have known in Guantanamo Bay. I say to you, wake up and have a look at what's happening in our High Court next month on November the 5th about what we actually did. We intend to open that inquiry and reveal material which no one has yet seen about the way in which we interrogated people. I invite you to turn up in force in the High Court on November the 5th and find out what the UK actually did and stop going on about what we might have done or what we might have known about what the US were doing. Because I can tell you a comparison of what we did, which emerges from all this evidence, which I have to say none of my clients ever have been found to be embellishing the truth, let alone lying. They've all been found to be telling the truth. So I invite you to come along and find out what we actually did. And just for 1 month, stop going on about what we might have been complicit in.
Okay. Back there, in the back.
Mark Roche of Le Monde. Don't you have, unlike Afghanistan, that on Iraq,
the public opinion has turned the page. We have been lied on, but life goes on. There are economic problems at the moment, and that there isn't the interest for Iraq that there was on Afghanistan this summer.
To whom are you directing the question?
Well, for Afghanistan, we had 14 pages of The Guardian. For Iraq, we have 9. And I suspect that's probably a proportionate view in the United Kingdom's press about the relative importance. But Iraq is now just cool enough, although remember there's still 50,000 US troops there and something like 150,000, 100,000 contractors. Iraq is now cool enough, at least in the public imagination, to properly take a look at it. And that's not something that is yet possible with Afghanistan. We did a little bit of that with the Afghan War Log release because it was a primary source documentation. But otherwise, views about patriotism and the supporting of troops and so on interferes with the process. For Iraq, I can see already in the news reportage a much fairer and less defensive portrayal of what happened in Iraq that has been revealed by this release. So these two countries do not stand in isolation. These are both modern Western wars. And the lessons of Iraq, which are ongoing, remember this material covers significant abuses occurring during the first year of the Obama administration, can be applied to Afghanistan and can be applied to other places that Western governments may choose in isolation or in coalition to invade. The war itself in the United States, I think, is becoming more of an issue. The Republicans are using the mismanagement of the Afghan war against the Democrats. We're 1 week before the congressional elections. And the Democrats can point to, rightly, the terrible abuses that occurred under a Republican administration. I hope that will permit raising of this issue. But I think in the last 24 hours, the press has been doing precisely what they should, and there's a good and broad spectrum. And the press, when it concentrates on a press issue, can overplay things. But I think their response to this issue has been broad and proportionate, and will continue.
I covered that behind.
The head of the